When was the last time you felt pressured to hide your anger, jealousy, or pain because they weren't spiritual enough? That moment when you sense the unspoken expectation to stay positive and raise your vibration, as if your difficult emotions somehow represented spiritual failure rather than essential aspects of your human experience. This pressure to perform spiritual perfection creates a painful split between our authentic emotional reality and the spiritual image we feel compelled to project. A division that prevents the very integration that genuine awakening requires. Jhené Aiko represents one of music's most powerful examples of authentic spirituality that refuses this emotional bypassing, demonstrating how true spiritual maturity embraces the full spectrum of human emotion rather than hiding behind transcendent platitudes. From her raw expression of jealousy and rage in Triggered to her unflinching exploration of grief following her brother's death, she has created a public template for spiritual practice that integrates shadow rather than denying it. Think about your own spiritual journey for a moment. How often have you felt the need to present a more evolved version of yourself by suppressing emotions deemed too negative or low vibration? What has been the cost of this spiritual performance on your authentic self-expression and genuine transformation? As we explore Jhené's journey today, I'll uncover 3 profound spiritual truths about emotional authenticity as spiritual discipline, the shadow side of spiritual bypassing, and the healing power of conscious emotional expression. These principles reveal how spirituality, when approached with psychological honesty rather than toxic positivity, becomes a powerful vehicle for genuine transformation rather than sophisticated escape from human reality. Insights that might illuminate your own struggle between authentic expression and spiritual performance. Triggered truth. Emotional honesty is spiritual courage. Truth 1. Authentic spiritual practice requires the courage to fully express difficult emotions rather than hiding them behind spiritual concepts or positive affirmations. When Jhené Aiko released Triggered in 2019, she demonstrated extraordinary spiritual courage, not by transcending her emotions, but by fully expressing them. With lyrics like, "You motherfucking right, I'm bitter," and raw expressions of jealousy and anger, she directly challenged the love and light paradigm that dominates much of spiritual culture. Consider for a moment in your own life when you felt intense jealousy, rage, or bitterness. Did you allow yourself to fully acknowledge these feelings, or did you quickly try to transmute them into something more spiritually acceptable? What might have happened if, like Jhené, you had given yourself permission to fully express these emotions rather than judging them as spiritual failures? What makes her approach spiritually significant is how it contradicts the common misconception that spiritual growth means transcending negative emotions. Her willingness to publicly voice jealousy, rage, and attachment demonstrates what spiritual traditions call the shadow work. The understanding that genuine transformation requires bringing unconscious material into conscious awareness rather than suppressing it with spiritual concepts. Think about your current spiritual practice. How much of it focuses on transcending difficult emotions versus fully experiencing them? Do you find yourself using meditation, affirmations, or other spiritual tools to bypass emotional reality rather than integrate it? What emotions do you find most difficult to acknowledge as part of your spiritual journey? The science of emotional processing confirms this wisdom. Research in affective neuroscience shows that fully experiencing and expressing emotions activates integration pathways in the brain that suppression cannot achieve. When we use spiritual concepts to avoid emotional reality, we create what psychologists call spiritual bypassing, using spiritual ideas to avoid psychological development rather than embrace or enhance it. Jhené's radical honesty in Triggered reveals a spiritual truth that might transform your own approach to difficult emotions. Emotional authenticity is not the opposite of spiritual awareness, but its foundation. As spiritual teacher Jack Cornfield notes, no amount of meditation or prayer can bypass the necessary stages of emotional development. What emotions might you need to more fully express rather than prematurely transcend on your own journey towards authentic spirituality? Grief as a gateway, emotional pain as spiritual doorway. Truth 2. Emotional suffering, when fully experienced rather than bypassed, becomes a doorway to genuine spiritual depth rather than obstacle to spiritual growth. Jhené Aiko's journey through grief following her brother Miyagi's death from cancer represents powerful demonstration of how emotional pain, when approached with consciousness rather than avoidance, becomes catalyst for spiritual awakening rather than hindrance to it. Reflect on a significant loss in your own life. Did you allow yourself to fully experience the grief, or did you feel pressure to move on and stay positive? What wisdom or depth might have been available to you if, like Jhené, you had allowed your suffering to become a doorway rather than an obstacle? What makes her approach spiritually significant is how she refused to use spiritual concepts to bypass the grief process. In tracks like Eternal Sunshine and throughout her Trip album, she demonstrates what wisdom traditions call conscious suffering, the willingness to fully experience emotional pain while maintaining awareness, rather than using spiritual ideas to escape it. Think about how you respond to emotional suffering in your own life. Do you tend to seek immediate relief through spiritual concepts like everything happens for a reason or it's all perfect? Or do you allow yourself to fully feel the pain while maintaining awareness? What might change if you approach your suffering as spiritual teacher rather than spiritual obstacle? This approach connects Aiko to ancient spiritual understanding about the transformative potential of fully experienced suffering. From Buddhist teachings about turning towards difficult emotions to contemplative Christian traditions that honor the spiritual significance of grief, wisdom paths have long recognized what modern spirituality often forgets: that emotional pain contains wisdom that premature transcendence cannot access. The psychological or psychology of grief processing supports this wisdom. Research shows that fully experiencing grief activates integration pathways in the brain that attempting to stay positive cannot achieve. When we allow ourselves to move through emotional pain rather than using spiritual concepts to avoid it, we participate in what traditions call the alchemy of suffering, the transformation of pain into wisdom through conscious experience. Jhené's willingness to document her grief journey reveals a spiritual truth that might transform your relationship with emotional suffering. Pain that contains spiritual intelligence that becomes accessible only through willingness to move and fully feel it. As spiritual teacher Francis Weller notes, the work of the mature person is to carry grief in one hand and gratitude in the other, and to be stretched large by them. What suffering in your own life might contain wisdom that would become available if you fully experienced rather than transcended it. Medicine of truth, emotional authenticity as collective healing. Truth 3. Authentic expression of shadow material serves not just personal healing, but collective liberation from spiritual perfectionism that prevents genuine transformation. Beyond personal catharsis, Jhené Aiko's emotional authenticity represents act of service. creating permission for listeners to acknowledge their own shadow aspects rather than hiding them behind spiritual facades. Her willingness to publicly express jealousy, rage, and attachment demonstrates what spiritual traditions call truth medicine. The understanding that authentic expression creates healing ripples beyond individual experience. Think about a time when someone else's emotional honesty created permission for you to own your own. Perhaps a friend, a teacher, or even an artist like Jhené expressed feelings you thought you needed to hide. How did their authenticity affect your own willingness to acknowledge shadow aspects of your experience? What might happen if you offered similar medicine through your own emotional truth-telling? What makes this approach spiritually significant is how it challenges the performance of spiritual perfection that dominates much of the contemporary spiritual culture. By expressing emotions that many spiritual practitioners feel pressured to suppress, she creates what traditions recognize as liberation through example, freeing others through her own willingness to embody authentic truth rather than spiritual pretense. Consider the spiritual communities or relationships in your life. Do you feel pressure to present a more evolved version of yourself in these contexts? What would it mean to bring your full emotional reality into these spaces? What might your authentic expression liberate in others? This pattern connects Aiko to wisdom traditions that recognize the collective dimension of individual truth-telling, from indigenous ceremonial practices designed to express rather than suppress emotional reality, to contemplative traditions that value naked truth over spiritual performance. Wisdom paths have long understood that what modern spirituality often forgets, that authentic expression of shadow material serves community healing, not just personal catharsis. The social psychology of authentic expression supports this wisdom. Research shows that vulnerability creates neuroresonance in others that performance cannot achieve. When we express our full emotional reality rather than presenting carefully curated versions of spiritual awakening, we participate in what traditions call truth transmission, communicating through authentic being rather than spiritual performing. Jhené's commitment to emotional transparency reveals this spiritual truth that might transform your understanding of authentic expression. Your willingness to acknowledge shadow aspects create permission for collective healing from the spiritual bypassing that prevents genuine transformation. As spiritual teacher Adi Shante notes, awakening happens when you tell the truth. What truth might you need to express that could serve not just your own healing, but a liberation for others from the tyranny of spiritual perfectionism? What makes Jhené Aiko's spiritual journey particularly significant is not just her willingness to express shadow material, but her capacity to hold it alongside genuine spiritual awareness, demonstrating what wisdom traditions call non-dual consciousness. The ability to embrace apparent opposites without rejecting either. Reflect on your own capacity to hold seemingly contradictory aspects of experience. Can you acknowledge your anger without being consumed by it? Can you feel your pain while maintaining awareness? Can you express shadow aspects without identifying completely with them? What might expand in your own consciousness if you develop greater capacity to hold both shadow and light simultaneously? Notice how her work consistently integrates seemingly contradictory elements, raw emotional expression alongside genuine spiritual insight, shadow material alongside authentic light. This integration represents what spiritual traditions call the middle path, neither suppressing difficult emotions in pursuit of false transcendence, nor being consumed by them without awareness. Think about your own tendency towards either spiritual bypassing or emotional reactivity. Do you tend to use spiritual concepts to avoid emotional reality? Or do you sometimes get lost in emotional reactions without maintaining awareness? What would it mean to find the middle path between these extremes in your own life? This balance connects Aiko to sophisticated spiritual understanding about the integration of shadow and light. From tantric approaches that view all emotions as sacred energy to Jungian's psychology's emphasis on shadow integration, mature spiritual paths have long recognized what modern spirituality often misses. That awakening involves embracing the full spectrum of human experience rather than identifying only with its transcendent aspects. The neuroscience of integration supports this wisdom. Research in interpersonal neurobiology shows that psychological health involves neurointegration, connecting rather than segregating different aspects of experience. When we attempt to identify only with spiritual aspects while rejecting unspiritual ones, we create what neuroscientists call disassociation, fragmentation rather than wholeness. Jhené's evolving capacity to hold both shadow and light reveals a spiritual truth that might transform your own approach to integration. Genuine awakening involves embracing the full spectrum of human experience rather than transcending parts of it. As spiritual teacher Ken Wilber notes, true spirituality is not a high, not a rush, not an altered state. It is simply the capacity to see what is. What aspects of your experience have you been rejecting as unspiritual that might actually be essential to your wholeness? Jhené Aiko's spiritual journey reveals profound truths about authentic spirituality that refuses emotional bypassing. Truth that might illuminate your own struggle between genuine expression and spiritual performance. Her story demonstrates 3 essential spiritual principles that could transform your own approach to difficult emotions. That authentic spiritual practice requires the courage to fully express rather than prematurely transcend. That emotional suffering becomes doorway to genuine depth when fully experienced rather than bypassed. And that authentic expression of shadow material serves collective healing from the spiritual perfectionism that prevents genuine transformation. Take a moment to reflect on your own spiritual journey. What emotions have you been judging as unspiritual? What suffering have you been trying to transcend rather than fully experience? What truth have you been hiding behind spiritual concepts or positive affirmations? The most profound spiritual insight isn't celebrity wisdom, but universal truth that applies directly to your own journey. When approached with psychological honesty rather than toxic positivity, spirituality becomes vehicle for genuine transformation rather than sophisticated escape from human reality. Your path towards authentic spirituality, like Jhené's, may require the courage to express emotions that spiritual culture often deems unacceptable. But in that authentic expression lies the possibility of genuine transformation that spiritual bypassing can never achieve. The integration that comes only through embracing your full humanity rather than performing spiritual transcendence. As always, stay beautiful, stay connected, and stay conscious in the field.